guys, I'm Zach Pennock, and this is my 1958 Ford F100 that we bought as a roller and made it to what it is today. First time I seen this truck was at Valley Alamo 2 years ago. A guy named Spencer owned it, had a twin turbo 4.8 in it, was a super cool truck, and ever since I seen it, I was like, man, I would love to have that thing. So, year down the road, we're building my girlfriend Lacey Blair's D150 for LS Fest. We needed a motor, so I got on the old trusty dusty Facebook Marketplace, started searching around, and found the motor that was in this truck was for sale. So I called Spencer, we worked a deal, went and bought the thing, tried buying the truck while we were there. He didn't want to sell it. So as the build goes on, I needed fuel lines, all the stuff to make that twin turbo motor work. And it was much easier to just buy the turnkey setup that came out of this truck from Spencer. So I called him and I'm like, hey, why don't you sell me that truck so I can just take all the stuff that's in it, move it over to the D150, speed my process up, and just save me a bunch of time. So I went over there, finally talked Spencer into selling me this thing. So I bought the truck, brought it home, sat for a while. We were gonna put a 12 valve in it because who doesn't love a good old diesel? We cut the firewall out of this thing, started fitting a 12 valve in it, and it just didn't seem right. So we stopped that, welded the firewall back up, and decided to go with a blower motor. Called Texas Speed, told them my plans. They built me this 427 LSX, Cali Dragon Slayer crank, Cali rods, Wiseco forged pistons, PRC Pro 60 heads, 6-bolt block, 6-bolt heads. Like, this thing is rated for 2,000 horsepower. We're only making 1,000, so we got plenty left in it. Called Blower Dry Services, told them my plans. They built this Stage 3 871 Teflon coated blower. My homie Weston Champlin hooked me up with this intake, snout, all the stuff I needed, plus a top hat. These things are expensive if you ever priced one. We put this thing together for Texas LS Fest. We backed it with a FTI Stage 4.5 Turbo 400. We've got a motion race work, operator shifter on it. Bought the Shinfield off-the-shelf headers for an S10. They worked out perfect. Already had holes in the fenders for the twin turbo motor. Since we welded the firewall, we had to paint it and make it look pretty. So my homie Stefan over at Devilish Trends did this lowrider style paint job on the firewall. We're running a Holley Dominator, a Holley 12-inch Pro screen, MSD Pro 600 with matching coils. Everything's ran on a Switch Pro, so I can actually start this truck from my phone. The truck had a Crown Vic swapped front end under it. Well, they don't make a QA1 setup for a 58 Ford, but this is their QA1 front end out of like a 64 to 72, I think. I don't remember the exact years, but this front end's not for this truck, but we modified the frame to fit it. So if you guys have one of these trucks, you can easily put one of these in it. Match it up with a set of dual adjustable rear coilovers. I got a Ford 9-inch. When we first started to build this truck, we were gonna drag race it. So called Boosted GT. He had some 15x14s for sale. We went over there and got those, set them under the truck, did some measuring, had to narrow the rear end about 8 inches. We did a Yukon 40 spline third member with a spool, quick axles, built us some 40 spline axles. This thing has bare brakes, 6 piston brakes in the front. In the rear, it's got a dual caliper. It's called a deep stage, so it's dual calipers and it fits a 15-inch wheel. Back to the Holley. This thing has full Holley EFI on it. It's front to back. It's got the VR1 in-tank pump set up. It's got a Holley fuel cell. I got the Holley drivers. It's got full Holley wiring harness. Wheel setup. For our street setup, we've got a set of 22x7 JTX in the front and a 20x14 in the rear. We're actually going to switch this thing to a 24x16 in the rear and run a fat 405 tire. So we originally built this motor. I didn't know shit about blowers. I still don't know a whole lot, but I know more now. But it had a set of dual throttle bodies on it from Holley, which worked. Nothing wrong with it. But all my Australian friends kept giving me enough shit to get rid of the throttle bodies because they think they're carbies. So I called Joe Blow in Australia. He sent me this super nice injector block that sits behind the top hat, holds 8 Holley 220-pound injectors, and then you got 8-3 feed lines going to the top hat. Throttle position sensors up on the hat, so everything is ran through the hat now. It is truly injected, no throttle bodies, no carbies, just true Australian spec burnout truck. Truck had 390s in it because we were going to drag race this thing. Well, 390s don't work with the right tire speed when you're doing burnouts. So we switched over to a 350 rear gear from Yukon. Got that thing set up, got the injection set up. The next thing we're gonna do with this truck is put it on methanol. So these are cathedral port heads because that's what intake I had when we built the motor. My motor for my Impala is at the house. It's a 402 Texas Speed. It's got a set of 260cc Pro PRC heads. So we're gonna swap the heads. Damien from Australia is building me an intake, and then we've got a 1071 coming from Blower Dry Services. So this thing will be on methanol, 1071. It has 16 injectors, so it should be a spicy unit. We're also switching to a dry sump from Aviade. We're gonna go with a different alternator bracket from Troy over at Warspeed. Super good guy, super helpful. He's helped me get this thing to where it's at now. All my Australian guys, Kyle, Douglas, Luxifer, Brody, Lynchy, Hinchy, Skidma, all those guys spent about a week at the shop and helped me get this thing set up to where it's at now. So guys, this truck has went from drag racing, burnouts, cruiser. We might have taken this thing to the sand dunes and turned it into a dune buggy and jumped it. So this thing did way better than I expected to when it was in the dunes, like way better. This thing is not supposed to be in the dunes, but we put a set of paddles on it. We took it out there, we sand dragged it. We jumped it. We just had a damn good time. And yes, there was an air filter in there, so I don't want to hear no crybabies talking about the air filter. I broke it.